Czy masz odwagę powiedzieć żono? I stałem tam, gdzie stało ZOMO.
Cześć, jestem z Wami. Dzisiaj omawiamy sobie maturę z języka angielskiego poziom dwujęzyczny. Właśnie się pojawił arkusz, ponieważ pojawił się dużo później niż od poziomu rozszerzonego, więc musiałem trochę poczekać. Natomiast jeśli chodzi o poziom podstawowy, to zadanie, to wypracowanie było na takim solidnym poziomie A2, A2+, może troszeczkę bliżej tego B1, natomiast część zamknięta była na bardzo takim podstawowym poziomie, żeby osoba, która uczy się angielskiego dopiero 3 lata na świeżo w liceum, która nie miała w podstawówce ani w gimnazjum angielskiego, żeby była w stanie to napisać. Natomiast poziom rozszerzony był na takim solidnym poziomie B2, już podchodzącym pod C1. Poziom, jeśli chodzi o poziom rozszerzony, był trudniejszy niż w zeszłym roku. Natomiast jeśli chodzi o poziom dwujęzyczny, to przejdziemy sobie razem przez niego i potem usłyszycie moją opinię. Ponieważ nie miałem kiedyś wcześniej do tego zajrzeć, dopiero się pojawiły arkusze, więc idziemy z tym faktem razem. Ominijmy sobie listening i idziemy sobie do readingu. Mamy 15 stron przed nami. Read two texts about television. For question 4147, choose the answer that best matches the text and select the appropriate letter A, B, C or D. No i tu już mamy, na poziomie dwujęzycznym mamy wszystkie także polecenia w języku angielskim. Text 1. The purchased yellow dress of Primrose Hill was crowded with young professionals. Many straight from their offices, talking and laughing, and Destiny lay in the center of all thinking about television. The idea of a career in photography had been abandoned without much of fight. He knew he was a decent amateur, but to become exceptional was pretty tall. Rejection and struggle, and he wasn't sure struggle suited him. 1. Television, on the other hand, wanted to him right now. Why hadn't he thought of it before, when he wasn't growing up? There had always been a television in his home, but there was something a little unwholesome about watching the thing. Now it had suddenly come to dominate his life, and with his passion of a new retreat, he found himself getting quite emotional about the medium, as if he had finally found a spiritual home. Idziemy do punktu. I tu będzie pytanko pierwsze. Look at the spaces marked 1 to 4 in the text and decide where the following sentence fits best the passage. Until recently, broadcasting has seemed stuffy, wolfy, and dull, heavily announced, dry, and bureaucratic, full of the rules and all these pushing titles, a sort of showbiz branch of the civil service. No, to jeszcze nie, bo tu jest opis, jak ta telewizja wyglądała, a tu mamy o jego chęci pracy w telewizji. His rise through the world has been meteoric. A woman he had met on a train in India had given him first job as a runner, then a researcher, and now he was assistant producer on a weekend magazine program that mixed live music with a brash report on the things that really start adolescent mind: music, freedom, and feeling of insecurity about the future. The hyperactive clips Daisy produced were shot of form from crazy angles through fisheye lenses, with the clouds speed up in sync with the acid house soundtrack. There was even thought of putting him in a front of camera in the next scene. He was flying, and then seemed to be very possibility that he would make his parents proud. I thought it didn't have an anti-gleam of photography. TV was the future. It always touched people's life in the most immediate way. Shaped onions provoke and damage more effectively than all those books no one read and places no one went to see. Emma could say that she lied about the tourists. This was no fun either, but they had certainly shaken up the media. By the contrast, led like producers where he worked was part of the boom in the new youth privately owned independent companies racing in the middle of production away from the fast dinosaurs. There was money in the media. The facts are from the primary colored open plan offices with the state-of-the-art computer systems and generously stocked commercial fighters. I watched in TV, just saying it gave him satisfaction. He lies striding down Berwick Street to the attitude in a jiffy bag of videotapes, nodding over the people just like him. He liked the sushi platters and the lunch parties, ordering carriers and saying things like, "We've got to lose 6 seconds." However, above anything else, he liked the fact that it was one of the best-looking industries in which youth was valued. No chance in this brave new world of TV of walking into a conference room to find a group of 62-year-old brainstorming. So what happened to TV people when they reach a certain age? Never mind, it suited him, as did the preponderance of young women like Naomi, hard, ambitious, and metropolitan. In rare moments of self-doubt, he had one worse word that a lot of intelligence might hold him back in life. But he was a job where confidence, energy, perhaps even a certain endurance were what mattered. All qualified lay with this gasp. Yes, you had to be smart, but not Emma smart. Just politically shrewd and ambitious. He wanted to share all his excitement with Emma, introduce her to new possibilities, new social circles, to make her life more like his own. Adapted from One Day by David Nichols. For one, look at the space. Until recently, I to pasuje nam do miejsca numer 3, tam gdzie mamy jak to wyglądało wcześniej, czyli odpowiedź C. 4.2. The Weekend magazine program for which this work provoked a heated debate among viewers, was rather too highbrow, had made this the pride and joy of his parents, adverse topics that mattered to young people. D. Tematy były skierowane do młodych ludzi. 4.3. Which of the following aspects of television is mentioned as appealing to Dacer? It had the power to influence political events. It was dominated by people with strongly held convictions. It was an environment in which young people could thrive. It gave opportunity to rub shoulders with the rich and famous. C. 4.4. It is implied in the final paragraph that Dacer said that he had what it looked to success in the world of television, behaved tensionally in an environment dominated by women, realized he was outgrowing his relation with Emma, felt envious of Naomi's promising career. C. Dalej. Text 2. Will the BBC Star adaptation of Shakespeare succeed? Ciekawe. Adapted from The Guardian. Most Shakespeare productions on television have been either camera captured of previous theatre success or were filmed in a studio that looked like a stage. Sir Anthony Hopkins' portrait of King Lear thought it is in every sense different. The play, if performed in full, runs for at least 4 hours. By director Richard Eyre, bring it in 115 minutes, which is the usual span of a TV movie thriller. A genre also echoes through the setting of dystopian contemporary London under Lear's military dictatorship. This length and look are central to what production is aiming for, mass audience. Most previous TV Shakespeare has been targeted towards viewers who happened not to be at the National Theatre or the Royal Shakespeare Company on that night. However, with the latest version of the King Lear, the BBC and co-producer Amazon, in whose online folds the show will have a long afterlife beyond its forthcoming BBC Two premiere. Hope that much wider audience will give it a go. Those who have watched Hopkins in Westworld admire Jim Carter at the battle in the popular drama series Downton Abbey, or applaud Andrew Scott for his mockery in Sherlock. In style as well as taste, this production of King Lear with fits TV flow. The pivotal scene in which Lear lost his mind, usually located in a half, he takes place in a bleak corporate shopping center that was modernist London, with Hopkins like a street sleeper wheeling a supermarket trolley through the venoms and stroll towards. Another key of the show is the delete key on a director's laptop. Swatches of pages are exciting, especially in the subplots of the Middle Ages, with the sequencing also tweaked. So that the second scene of the fourth act now comes after the sixth, which is joined to the first, counterintuitively but effectively. I often ignore Shakespeare's use of cross-cut short scenes prophetic of cinema to create longer sessions in one setting. The main highlight of the project is the return to the classical canon of Hopkins, a great Shakespearean actor for many years feared to be permanently lost to Hollywood, who proves that he still has the vocal dexterity and psychological intuition needed for a repertoire peaks. As has become common with modern leaders, Hopkins gave a clinically precision depiction of the onset of dementia on which we now denounce the king. But the key to his wonderfully affecting performance is a bold verbal bipolarity. Much must have been done in the sound balance to recognize the flaming rage of the curse against his daughter, Cordelia, with the whispery softness of the reconciliation. With his performance, Hopkins has set a new benchmark of Shakespeare, to which others can only aspire. And he could not have done more to make his trilogy, which is more than 400 years old, thrive in the box set and streaming culture. No, to mamy cały tekst dotyczący tego, w jaki sposób Shakespeare był wystawiany wcześniej, że Shakespeare w telewizji to był albo nagrywany spektakl w teatrze, po prostu filmowany, albo po prostu to było wystawiane w postaci scenicznej. Teraz trzeba było to zrobić już w formie filmowej, no bo miało to być najpierw wyświetlane na BBC tu, a potem na Amazonie. I trzeba było to robić we współczesnej wersji. No i mamy tak. 4.5. We learn from the first paragraph that the BBC adaptation of King Lear, featured actors who have already appeared on other TV, will be made available online simultaneously with the TV premiere, is likely to dishearten enthusiasts of the BBC production, caters to the demands of television as a medium. 4.6. The author used the phrase "another hero of the show is the delete key on the director's laptop" to call into question to computer-generated effects, to draw attention to the director's extensive abridgment of the original play, to express his skepticism about the director's editing skills, to highlight the editor's reliance on modern technology. 4.7. In the last paragraph, the author claims that Hopkins' Hollywood career undermined his credibility as a Shakespearean actor. Hopkins is expected to give way to new generation Shakespearean actors. Hopkins fails to give a convincing portrait of ethnic's bipolarity. Hopkins' performance as a central character is unrevealed. Niepodważalna rola Hopkinsa jako wystawiacza, znaczy aktora. Strona 8, zadanie 5. Read the article. 4 passages have been removed from text. Complete each depth with the passage which fits best and put appropriate letter AE in each depth. There's one passage which don't need to use. Collectively, they might be entitled in case of emergency. This is a set info, a bit like the idea when newspapers have large files of obituaries for people who aren't yet dead. Since the motives of the existence of the revelation are much less powerful than World War III or extraterrestrial disaster, the impact on the reader is also much weaker. Just in the case of the Queen's speech, his immediately hardens into something tangible something that was so nearly the case that it has left its shadow in reality, and so to read it will feel the thrill of the uncanny, as if you have just received a poster from the agency and this. There's no surviving text for speech in which Harry Truman explains why the US didn't use the atomic bomb on one, in which Tony Blair explains why another UN United Nations resolution would be a prerequisite for invading Iraq. And we haven't learned anything substantive from the speech, and yet, when it was released as part of the last National Archive declassification, most newspapers concluded that his figment of the imagination was more interesting than a number of real events. No dobrze, czytamy. The Unmade Speech, an alternative draft of history. Mowa, która się nie odbyła, alternatywna historia rzeczywistości. Now, this madness of war is once more spreading through the world, and our brave country must again prepare itself to survive against great odds. I have never forgotten the sorrow and the proud I felt as my sister and I hunted around the nursery while I sat listening to my father's inspiring words on that fateful day in 1939. Not for a single moment did I imagine that this solemn and awful duty would one day fall to me. Thank goodness the Queen never had to make this speech. Indeed, she may not even know about it, written as a part of preparatory exercise for a Third World War that never came. It is really barely more than a footnote to history. So why do we pay such rapt attention to the war that never was? I tu będzie pasowało C. Just as in the case of Queen's Speech, czyli mowa taka o mowie królowej, która na szczęście nie trzeba było jej wygłaszać. There is in general something dissatisfying about controversial history. It is too flimsy. Once you have taken more than a single step away from what really happened, the very best made all speculation pointless. Another speech we have never heard was written for Richard Nixon in case of a moon landing disaster. Fate has ordained that the man who went to the moon to explore it in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. These brave men, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, know that there is no hope for their recovery, but they also know that there is a hope for making in their sacrifice. The two speeches have something else in common. They both imagined the worst and live that it didn't come about. No tak, bo pierwsza notka mówi o co by powiedziała królowa brytyjska, gdyby się rozpętała III wojna światowa, a druga notka mówi nam, co by powiedział Richard Nixon, gdyby nie udało się lądowanie na Księżycu. I teraz sobie nam tu pasowało. Ja bym dał odpowiedź A. Collectively, they might be entitled in case of emergency. This is an unsettling thought, a bit like the idea that newspapers have large files of objects for people who aren't yet dead. No to są takie, no tak, fragmenty dla gazet, co na wypadek, gdyby się źle potoczyło, co można byłoby zrobić. Intuitively, when it becomes to war-shaking events, we don't do a lot of scripture the other way around. They might actually have been written, but once the course of action is transmitted, it's only natural that the authors would be at pains to make the choice seem inevitable. How much more pleasant it is to trip to the edge of the precipice and then draw the fully back than to look up to the ravine below and know that you are stuck where you are. To zobaczymy później, co by pasowało, bo to nie jestem pewien. Powiem wam, że przy 5-3. You can be sure that all over the planet there are political advisors turning laptops that big drafts of speeches written to others that aftermath of the unthinkable. It must be an awful duty to have to write that sort of thing, to imagine your way to a catastrophe, and to put so much work on a project that you fervently hope turns out to be redundant. When you read these speeches, part of the trippy power comes from the detail in which they are written. Far more distressing than the Queen's line about the madness of war is the passage later on which the safety of her beloved son Andrew is told to doubt. Adapted from Independence UK. I tu w ostatnim to by pasowało właśnie ostatnie. Dobrze, co mamy dalej? Dobra. Bo dzisiaj już robię to dwujazyczny, bo już robiłem rozszerzony przed chwilą, teraz robię dwujęzyczny i jeszcze dzisiaj trochę pracowałem, więc trochę jest roboty. Read the text. For questions 6164, choose the appropriate paragraph and write the corresponding letter A, E in the table. One paragraph does not match any of the question. No dobrze. Ten nie będzie pasował. Which paragraph that refer to a rally had event which includes a competition, a certain misconception about the language used by the natives, mutual support among community members, a noticeable trend in the number of speakers using the dialect. The Ibiza Island speaks Hoy-Toder. Located 34 miles from the North Carolina mainland, Overtown Island is fairly remote and can only be reached by boat. Being so cut off in colonial times, Overtown was considered to be a perfect spot for fugitives like pirates and outlaws who want to drop out of sight. As a result, an enormous diverse community of around 200 inhabitants emerged and started mixing the words and dialects, eventually building their own way of speaking called Hoy-Toder. Someone has humorously described it as an Elizabethan English with Irish and Scottish accents from the 1070s spring in, all mixed up for a good measure with pirate slang. I tu mamy... A certain misconception about the language used by the natives. B. This Elizabethan origin is the reason why Hoy-Toder is commonly perceived to be a fusion of words that are obsolete in contemporary English. However, this presumption couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, it is a rich blend of the variety of cultures and languages which have morphed in a unique dialect or broad. Let's have a look for some examples. The word queamish does not indeed come from a 16th century qualm, meaning sick or nauseous, but the word buck, which means a male friend, has been traced back to 13th century German. Tu czytałem, to chyba by mi nie pasowało. The community lived in seclusion for almost 2 centuries. Electricity didn't arrive at the island at night until 1938, and ferries didn't operate until 1957. Leaving the islanders cut off except for occasional supply from to the mainland. But in recent years, the island has been invaded by flocks of tourists. There are also more invaders from the mainland moving into every part. As the modern South has become a thing of the past, the language is following suit. Native inlanders used the accurate Hoy-Toder naturally because it was the only means of spoken communication on the island. But the full Hoy-Toder word is generally starting to disappear. Thus is everyone likelihood that within 1 or 2 generations it will fade away. No bo mamy tutaj, że nie było elektryczności do 1938, promy pierwsze zaczęły przypływać w 1957, no i pojawiła się masa turystów. I to będzie 6-4. A noticeable trend in the number of speakers using the dialect. 6-4. C. Dobrze. D. The islanders are managing to hold into a unique culture in other ways. In the beginning, settlers often had to resort to alternative while swallowing up to a meal. The same concept holds true today, with limited stores on the island. If you run out of supplies, you can either head to the mainland for what you need or just find a replacement. That was apparently how Orchaton's signature dish came to be. The story goes that one day an island resident was making a date cake. Suddenly realized she had all the remedies except the dates. She looked in her cupboard and found a jar of fruit preserves. She threw them into the mix and made Orchaton fruit cake. Now annually in August you can attend a fruit festival complete with fruit cake baked off and fruit tasting. No, że wam się coś zabraknie, to trzeba albo się cofnąć do USA, popłynąć te 30 mil i kupić, albo użyć zamiennika. No i tutaj trzeba było użyć innych owoców. I tu mamy, i z tego się wzięły później takie zawody, i tu będzie 6.1. Regularly held event which includes a competition. These days, Orchaton Island is a little bit of melting pot. You can spot people from all walks of life there, which in some ways reflect the same wealth of experience the original settlers brought. And despite the passage of time, traditions stand strong. No matter what changes, some things will stay the same. Islanders still dance a square dance, much like dances performed during the American colonial period, and they invariably valued the same things as their ancestors. For instance, if someone is left destitute, the locals will always pitch in. Let's hope they manage to preserve the best of the culture for future generations. No, że zachowano tań, zachowano pewne zwyczaje mimo napływu ludzi z zewnątrz i że są bardzo gościnni, bo wiedzą, tylko sami mogą przetrwać. I to będzie odpowiedź 6.3. Mutual support among community members 6.3. I tutaj z tego widzimy, że ten jeden paragraf nam odpada. Competition. I tutaj widzimy, że B nie pasuje do niczego, z tego co pamiętam. Lecimy dalej, bo czas nas goni. Strona 12. Read the text. For a question, choose the word or phrase which fits best in each step. Select the letter A, B, C or D. Mamy 5 lubczek. When will my computer understand me? It's not hard for humans to distinguish the charge of the battery from criminal charges. But for the computers... Znaczy, dla ludzi nie ma dużego problemu rozróżnić charge w baterii, czyli ładowanie baterii, od kryminalnego myślenia charges. Charges to są zarzuty. But for a computer... I tu będzie differentiating between the various meanings of the word is problematic. Even though linguistic and computer scientists have been trying to get computers to understand human language by programming semantics as software, they had mixed success. It was driven initially by attempts to translate Russian technical text during Cold War, and more recently by data analysis tools. A few of IBM's systems and Google Translate are high profile, successful application of language technologies, but even they were at first liable to produce humorous answers and mistranslations, which was evidence of the difficulty of the problem. No tak, że po prostu próbowano stworzyć odpowiednie narzędzia i że najpierw to było z rosyjskiego poprzez Tłumaczenie z rosyjskiego podczas zimnej wojny, później mamy IBM-owski i googlowski translator, który już działa lepiej, ale na początku było bardzo dużo nieporozumień. Using this dictionary means to train computers to better understand language, also overcame obstacles. No to uczenie maszynowe pomogło to rozwinąć i omijać błędy, pomyłki. Dictionaries have their own sense, distinctions and nuances. However, what is crystal clear for dictionary makers can be murky for a dictionary reader. Moreover, no two dictionaries provide the same set of meaning, and the same word can look up a different sense depending on the content. Watching linguistics struggle to make sense of conflicting definitions, let us suggest to try a different tactic. Using this analysis. Instead of using dictionary entries, why not mine a vast body of texts which are the definition of human knowledge and language and use of implication connection between the words of the matter relationship. Different meanings of the same word could be visualized as points in space, either close together or far apart, depending on the meaning in a particular context. In other words, researchers hope to get to the point where a computer will be able to interpret the speaker's intention. Until that goal, computers won't understand. Until that goal has been attained, computers won't understand languages as well as a human being does. Dopóki ten cel, jakim jest wychwytywanie intencji rozmówcy, przy tłumaczeniu nie będzie zrozumiały dla komputera, że komputer nie będzie wychwycał intencji w mówieniu, do tego momentu tłumaczenie maszynowe nie będzie takie dokładne jak przez człowieka. Mamy tutaj, uwaga, conditional, trzeba na to zwracać uwagę, 7.5, has been attained, bardzo ważny conditional. Task 8. For question 8185, think of one word only which can be used to complete all three sentences. Write the missing word in the space provided. The word must be spelled correctly. The patient poor health continues to live on his mood. You've got a dirty. Don't try to remove it on your own. The river reached the high water as. No i tu mamy takie naprawdę już zadanie na pozastanawianie się, ponieważ musimy znaleźć słowo, które będzie pasowało do wszystkich trzech zdań i musi być w tej samej formie. Czyli, że w tej samej formie musi pasować to jedno słowo do wszystkich, nie może być w innych formach i musi tutaj pasować, więc trzeba by się chwilę pozastanawiać, a to może zostawimy sobie na kiedy indziej, bo tutaj trzeba by trochę się pogłówkować, a ja chciałbym przejść jednak do zadania otwartego. Task 9. For question 9195, complete each gap using the words given in a bracket so that the sentence is logical and correct as far as spelling and grammar are concerned. You can change the form of the word given in the brackets or add other words if necessary. Czy musimy uzupełnić sobie słowami w nawiasach? Możemy sobie je odmieniać i dodawać jeszcze dodatkowe słowa, pod warunkiem, żeby była zachowana poprawność. Use up to 6 words, including the word given in brackets. Użyj maksymalnie 6 słów, uwzględniając te w tym, w nawiasie. Don't change the order. Nie zmieniaj kolejności. My budget teacher was the first. My budget teacher was the first who congratulated me that I won a prize. price in a sense repetition. What? Use give her advice if she knows everything we say. What? A tutaj nie jestem pewien, nie chcę was prowadzić w błąd. 9. I'm afraid that the agreement might not signed by all of the parties yesterday. I'm afraid that I'm afraid the agreement might that agreement might haven't been signed by all the parties yesterday. There were quite a few objections to paragraph 3. The owner of the castle is said, pay fortune for the dining room table. To pay fortune. My sister is a bit outspoken. She tend Tutaj musiałbym się zastanowić, ale jest to takie dosyć ciekawe. Zadania 8 i 9 widzę, że są sporo trudniejsze, wymagają więcej zastanowienia się na spokojnie, na pewno nie przed kamerą. I mamy tak, zadanie 10, ostatnie. Choose one of the topics below and write a composition following the conventions of the genre indicated in the topic. Use between 300 and 350 words. I tu mamy 2 zadania w języku polskim. Pierwsze. Wiele osób uważa, że praca zespołowa przynosi lepsze efekty niż indywidualna. Czy zgadzasz się z tym poglądem? Wyraź swoją opinię na ten temat w rozprawce. Omów następujące aspekty: motywacji do pracy, odpowiedzialność za wykonywaną pracę, organizację pracy. To tutaj co mógłbym powiedzieć na ten temat. Oczywiście tutaj trzeba to w formie pisemnej, a ja wam to zrobię w formie ustnej, co pewnie będzie wersją trudniejszą. Many people think that working in a team is better than working alone, but it's not always that way. In Western culture, we grown up as individualists, and we know that we prefer to work on our own. We don't like to work in a team. For example, the testing system in the US and in the western part of the European Union is made up to for testing. So you need to learn to a test. You need to work on your own, and it's not the best idea to work in a team because if you need to trust everyone, and everyone need to work in a team. And we are afraid in Europe to work in a team. We prefer to work on our own. But in Asia, in Korea, in Japan, there's other system of working. They work together. They are not individual people, but they work together for a company, and they work for a company, and the work is much more important than in Europe. In Europe, we change our job many times in our life, many times. But in Asia, people mostly work in 1 or 2 companies in the whole life. They start to work in one company, and they retire from that company. And sometimes at the event when a person is going on a pension, the person will receive a special Swiss watch from a manager as a gift to say thank you for your whole life in our company. Yeah, but it's a different story. It's a different way of live. And even Europeans who live in Asia as expat, or Americans who live there in Asia, they are not too used to work in this type of team, because they have a collective thinking. The work which was created by the Soviets, it really works in Asia, but it wouldn't ever work in Europe or US. Because it's crazy from our way. Collective thinking is something crazy, and I know that now in a school there's a project way of teaching and project way of learning that is not always working as individual but also working as a team. But we need to remember that not always working as a team is the best idea. Sometimes the great leaders are the great individual. For example, in Harry Potter, the house of Gryffindor, they are team players, but the house of Slytherin, they are great team leaders, and you cannot join it. Sometimes it's good to have a house of Gryffindor, whereas a big team and which can work. But in a big team, you need one leader from a Slytherin so they can follow him. So now, working as a team can be good, but you need a good leader. If you don't have a good leader, the team will not do anything. They will be lazy and they will not do anything if there's no one good leader. From other way, if there are too many people who pretend to be leaders, the team will be dispatched and there will be a big problem because everyone will want to work on their own. And now in these days, in our generation, in Y generation and Z generation, I think that working in a team is quite impossible. I'm not saying this is good or not, but I say that it's quite impossible. Coś takiego bym wymyślił do pierwszego tematu. A do drugiego, w wielu miastach w ramach budżetu miejskiego są realizowane ciekawe projekty zaproponowane przez mieszkańców. Napisz list do gazety internetowej, w którym opiszesz jeden z takich projektów, który zwrócił Twoją uwagę, napiszesz o problemach, które wynikną podczas realizacji, wyrazisz swoją opinię na temat możliwości udziału mieszkańców w decyzjach dotyczących rozwoju. Co by tu wykombinować? I was thinking for a long time how our city can work as a one big team. Is it even possible to work as a one community? And what it means to be a part of the community, a member of community? What does it mean to us? What is a city? Is a city just a group of people without any connection? I don't think so. I think that the idea that we have some community budget, and from that money we can do something we decide, not politicians, but we can be something like a glue which connects the people inside the group, and this group is a community, our city. And now there's a great idea. In the fact that we have a river, it's a good idea to have some sailor competitions, some sailor teams, or some ships which can arrive from around the world. They can come to a city. So people who live here can go there, can visit there, can see it. This is a big part of the history of that of the countries and the cities which have built that ships. But also people who came there can come to a city to join it. And one project in this citizen budget of our city is a project to build some type of hostel. We can build a hostel for the people who arrive on that ships to our city, because when they arrive on a ship going through our river, they are embarked there. Not everyone want to stay on a ship when the people from a city will want to see that ships. So most of them wants to go to a hostel. In that hostel there will be a lot of dormitories, when the people who came to a city can stay in the same multi-bedroom with other people who come to a city. They can join them, they can go to a party, they can meet them, and then the people from EU can meet the people from outside EU, from other places. This is the best use to a river, because now it's mostly useless. Not used for a river, just used for a river bank for infrastructure, for restaurants, for bars, for clubs, for everything. We just need to build a special hostel, not very expensive, but good for our community. So then the people who will come to our city, especially by the trips, they will be able to stay there. And that's a good way of thinking how to improve our city and how to do in the right way. No, coś w tym stylu bym wymyślił. Czyli po prostu na zasadzie, że z budżetu miejskiego wybudować, tak jak mówiłem, hostel, gdzie ludzie, którzy przypływają na statkach do miasta oraz przyjeżdżają drogami i samolotami do miasta, mogliby w dormitoriach, czyli w pokojach wieloosobowych się zdrzemnąć, spotkać z innymi ludźmi. Takie hostele moim zdaniem są bardzo potrzebne i to byłby bardzo dobry moment na użycie budżetu właśnie tego obywatelskiego. No, więc to mniej więcej powiedziałem po angielsku. I to mi się wydaje, że to był bardzo fajny pomysł. Słuchajcie, co ja sądzę na temat poziomu matury na poziomie dwujęzycznym z angielskiego w tym roku, 2022. Moim zdaniem pierwsza kwestia jest taka, że jeśli chodzi o zadania zamknięte, były na poziomie mniej więcej C2. C1 łamane na C2, bardziej w C2, zwłaszcza te dwa ostatnie zadania, 8 i 9, które były naprawdę trudne. Więc to już jest naprawdę wyższa liga. Jeśli chodzi o te zadanie 10, o wypracowanie, moim zdaniem osoba, która napisała dobrze wypracowanie na poziomie rozszerzonym, byłaby w stanie też napisać bez specjalnego douczania się na poziomie dwujęzycznym. To wypracowanie po prostu musi być trochę dłuższe i jest to do zrobienia. Uważam, że wypracowanie jest mniej więcej na poziomie takim między B2 a C1, czyli na takim wypracowanie z poziomu dwujęzycznego, czyli na takim samym poziomie jak na poziomie rozszerzonym. Różnica jest w zadaniach zamkniętych, które tam były na poziomie B2 łamanym na C1, a tutaj mamy C1 łamane na C2, bardziej bliżej w stronę C2 moim zdaniem. Ale zachęcam, ponieważ jest to dosyć ciekawy poziom. W tej chwili jest tak, że jak zdajecie poziom rozszerzony, to zdajecie podstawowy, a potem rozszerzony. On jest w inny dzień. Zdajecie oba. Jeżeli chcecie zdawać rozszerzony, to musicie zdać podstawowy i rozszerzony. Jeżeli zdajecie poziom dwujęzyczny, to najpierw piszecie poziom podstawowy, a potem piszecie poziom dwujęzyczny. Już rozszerzonego już nie piszecie w tym momencie. Po prostu w tym samym czasie, co inni piszą rozszerzony, wypiszecie sobie dwujęzyczny. Macie na to pół godziny więcej czasu, ze względu, że zadanie 10 otwarte jest dłuższe. Musicie użyć więcej słów, nie między 200-250, a między 300-350. Więc musicie bardziej się tu wykazać. Więc dlatego zamiast 2,5 godziny są 3 godziny czasu. No i czy warto? Moim zdaniem warto. Ponieważ jak weszła matura w obecnym formacie, to był rok 2005, przez pierwsze 10 lat poziom dwujęzyczny był zarezerwowany tylko i wyłącznie dla klas dwujęzycznych. Klasy zwykłe, w tym klasy z poszerzonym językiem, nie miały możliwości zdawania poziomu dwujęzycznego. Była możliwość tylko zdawania poziomów podstawowego i rozszerzonego. To był ten problem, że ja w 2006 tego dwujęzycznego wybrać nie mogłem, dlatego zdawałem rozszerzony i w części pisemnej i ustnej. Dopiero w 2015 roku został poziom dwujęzyczny uwolniony i wszyscy teraz maturzyści mogą zdawać poziom dwujęzyczny. Nie ma z tym już problemu i właśnie od 2015 roku każdy może sobie ten poziom wybrać. Oczywiście nauczyciele będą zniechęcali, ale moim zdaniem warto, ponieważ jest naprawdę ciekawy, pozwala się wykazać. Jeżeli czujecie się mocniej w angielskim, warto wybrać poziom dwujęzyczny. Jeżeli czujecie się dobrze z angielskiego, ale powiedzmy sobie, że ta moc nie jest aż taka, wybrałbym poziom rozszerzony wtedy na waszym miejscu. Gdybym ja miał zdawać ponownie, poszedłbym do poziomu dwujęzycznego. Zdecydowanie bym poszedł na dwujęzyczny, bo dałbym sobie radę. I z tym was zostawiam. Napiszcie mi swoje opinie, który z tych dwóch tematów wybraliście i jak się czujecie po tym egzaminie. Jestem bardzo ciekawy waszych opinii i czekam na komentarze.
Ty co kobiety chciałbyś zniewolić, pozbawić chciałbyś niewolnej woli. Rządzie biskupie, do was to mówię, wstydzi się was dziś kraj. Nie płaczcie siostry, ducha nie traćcie, uwierzcie w naszą wygraną w walce. Uwierzcie w to, że już niedługo piękniejszy będzie kraj.